I study democratic theory, and by necessity, I had to start studying democratic erosion and populism because they are the main culprits of the democratic erosion that's happening. So when I was kindly asked to come, this was quite a challenge. So as probably everybody here, I'm an avid user of ChatGPT. We sometimes, or AI, we sometimes, I would say we have a little bit contentious relationship. This week we just had a fight about false equivalence, and that they are some things as the truth. But it was a nice and welcome challenge for me to think about how AI can either help or worsen the democratic erosion, and this is something which I would like to take you with me on this journey. I don't know. No, but I can. No. Okay, so what I as a starting point for me, artificial intelligence has already radically reshaped democracies worldwide. It's both a critical challenge, but also a promising opportunity to help this democracy worldwide. Perhaps before I continue, I want to tell you that as of democracies worldwide, according to the Gothenburg Institute Index Varieties of Democracy, there are 88 democracies in total. 29 of them are liberal democracies. There are 92 autocracies worldwide. So actually trying to prevent further democracies eroding into from liberal to electoral, and from electoral to competitive authoritarianism is an essential matter. So this is why we should care. And what I will try to do is to outline in an abstract 5 core threats that are posed by artificial intelligence to democracy, and 5 significant opportunities that artificial intelligence presents for enhancing democracy. And then I want to, just in a conclusion, in a final third part, I want to synthesize some key insights and perhaps recommendation. I will restrain myself from recommending anything to policymakers. I don't think they want to listen. They are too busy watching the market. So computers hate me, but it's fine. It's mutual. So starting with the threats, so we can finish with the opportunities. So the first, so it likes you, but it doesn't like me. Okay, but maybe now yes. Okay, so disinformation and manipulation. I don't know if you have opened social media today and have seen the nice Chinese videos of current American government working in the Nike factory. So this is just the latest. I would recommend to not share it if you want to, in near future, travel to the United States. Deepfake technologies create convincing synthetic media, distorting the truth and eroding public trust. Public trust is an absolute necessity. Without trust, both into institutions, in democracy as a system of government, into fellow citizens. Without trust, society doesn't work. It's atomized. It brings with itself apathy. AI-driven disinformation campaigns have an incredible speed. And studies have shown how much slower repudiation of disinformation is, and how actually, even if you repudiate in a little part of the people, in the disinformation is still there. So what is important is the unprecedented scale, the unprecedented speed, and how cheap it is. So basically, you don't need, where you needed the troll farm before, you can actually program some bots today. So the costs of actually running disinformation and manipulation campaigns has decreased significantly, thus broadening the scope of actors that can engage in disinformation and manipulation. What it also, together with algorithms, it also allows micro-targeting, personalized political manipulation, that you will just be shown, for example, in United States, in the last presidential campaign, the Republican Party and campaign of President Trump has invested $100 million just into one advertisement that was about rights of trans people. It was one of the most effective, historically most effective advertisement. And it was, of course, in the United States. It's possible to micro-target. It was always the case, but now this is broadening. That means that somebody who already has seen some content about these issues is further shown, and it just further reiterates the possible view. So what micro-targeting does, it basically uses the pre-existent polarization and further just pulls on the loose threads that exist in democracy and pull us further apart, thus fracturing both the democratic discourse and democracy as such. Mass surveillance and erosion of privacy. AI enables pervasive government surveillance, potentially infringing on fundamental human rights. Just when I was reading there, the Department of State of United States said that they are going to use artificial intelligence to efficiently combat anti-Semitism by scrolling social media of anybody who is applying for visa or a green card. This, of course, every state has the right to protect its safety and security of its citizens. The devil is always hidden in the detail. Does a Free Gaza statement actually represent anti-Semitism? And this is the nexus between human beings and artificial intelligence, because it's always human beings that deploy artificial intelligence. So increased surveillance causes chilling effect on speech. It deters citizens from freely expressing their dissent, which is exactly the aim here. The AI tools facilitate invasive profiling, tracking of citizens, undermining autonomy and democratic freedom. So it allows you at much lower cost to actually combine data that the state knows about you. For example, combining, I don't know, your tax returns together with your travel data, etc., etc. Third, bias, discrimination, and unequal representation. Of course, artificial intelligence is artificial intelligence. It has been, these systems have been trained on historical data, and we know that the historical data are biased. Thus, artificial intelligence can perpetuate discrimination and reinforce structural inequalities. The algorithmic biases in law enforcement, public policy, resource allocation, then further exacerbate social division. I think that this is quite clear. I would also say that, of course, artificial intelligence resources disproportionately empower wealthy entities. I mean, if you just think of like who is using the free version of ChatGPT, who has the regular one, and who has the pro one, that already makes a huge difference. Not to consider the energy that this is actually consuming. That is making it almost impossible for the poorest communities to actually engage in this. So the digital divide, which has always been there, further deepens. Undermining electoral integrity. You can have artificial intelligence generated personas and campaigns that deceive voters. I don't know if you know, but there is a synthetic party found by a Danish IT person. It's a party that doesn't have any members, any politicians. It's all just bots. My graduate student has now received all the information, so he keeps sending me all the new findings he has. Of course, the synthetic party is not disrupting democratic electoral processes. But imagine that political parties are just putting forth using campaign devices to deceive voters. Usually it would be manipulating information about the opposing candidate. So this is nothing new, but it's a tool that makes everything faster, cheaper, harder to combat. Deepfakes of political candidates, spreading false narratives, undermining public confidence in democratic institutions, and as I already said, dispelling these narratives actually tends to further reinforce them in parts of the population. And finally, what AI can do, you know, it's I like the saying, the road to hell is paved by good intention. So of course, it may be nimble, it may be efficient, but we may lose transparency and democratic accountability. I think this is really important to understand that both algorithms and artificial intelligence are creations of human beings, and those human beings have certain norms and values, whether they are aware of them or not. Nobody is perfectly clear, and this is important, because if we introduce this into governance, we make it opaque rather than transparent, and impede effective democratic oversight. So when already now it's difficult for citizens to hold the government accountable, the government powered by AI, how can citizens actually keep up? And we know that this is something that would undermine diagonal accountability. So accountability outside of elections also undermine civic trust and legitimacy of the democratic processes. So that's the doom and gloom. Now we are going into the positive. So where are the opportunities for artificial intelligence and democracy? First, enhancing political participation and engagement. We could have AI-driven civic education platforms that would empower citizens with tailored knowledge, strengthening informed participation. It could personalize democratic engagement, encouraging greater civic involvement through targeted outreach, for example, to young people, first-time voters. In Czech Republic, we have elections this fall. We still don't know exactly when, but it's going to be probably in September. And there are going to be 200,000 first-time voters. So actually reaching out to them would be really important. So intelligent participatory platforms, there is already a lot happening. For example, easing people's vote choice, but this all could be further charged. Then, actually, rather than undermining, strengthening transparency and accountability, real-time fact-checking to combat disinformation, to reinforce public trust. You could actually use this in debates when politicians are coming. Algorithmic monitoring, so government watchdogs of AI to detect and deter corruption and misuse of public resources. You could make it easier for watchdog organizations such as in Czech Republic, Hlídač státu, the guardian of the state, which publishes information about state contracts. This could be done more effectively and efficiently with artificial intelligence. Analysis of government data that ensures accountability and promotes ethical governments. I would sometimes like the artificial intelligence to crawl the parliamentary debates for me, so I don't have to. That would make my life much better. Third opportunity, improving governance and decision making. So AI-driven data analysis to support evidence-based policy making, improving policy outcomes, policy efficiency, assessing implementation. I think we are very far away from that in Czech Republic. We are just starting to really apply RIA, which is a mechanism to check on impact of policies, but this is one of the most important things. The politics is really complex, and evidence-based policymaking is something that at least Czech Republic is among the weakest countries in the European Union. Sentiment analysis of public opinion via artificial intelligence tools can enhance government responsiveness to citizen needs. I see this as an opportunity, but I can also tell you that already public opinion surveys that exist and politicians don't necessarily follow them, they only like their own data. Predictive analytics could help policymakers to anticipate societal needs, proactively address democratic deficits. Again, this would be great, but statistical office can tell them 15 years in advance how many children were born, so they could kind of know how many high schools are going to be needed. This is not a secret, and still it's not happening. But I think it will be absolutely necessary if we want to improve governance in the Czech Republic. Fourth, to strengthen the electoral process, AI enhance cybersecurity that would fortify electoral integrity by preventing cyber threats, cyber hacks, automated detection and response to voter suppression tactics, ensure fairer and electoral participation. We still don't know what's going to happen with TikTok, but we know that after TikTok there will be another thing. So the tools are here, and if the tools exist to manipulate, we need efficient tools to counter it. So artificial intelligence could also assist electoral commissions in accurately and transparently managing complex election logistics. So you could know, for example, it could look at time how many poll watchers you need to have in the room according to the past analysis, etc. Finally, supporting inclusive and equitable governance. AI-powered translation and language accessibility tools can increase political participation across diverse linguistic groups. It could also actually AI-powered simplified language. So we know that one of the biggest divides existing in contemporary society is education, hence actually simplified. So everybody can read. One thing is reading, another thing is comprehension. So artificial intelligence could actually help to make it more understandable to the broader public. Then AI-driven analysis detecting biases in policies and law, contributing to more equitable democratic outcomes. This would be important. We have a whole database where I spent a lot of time of judgments of the Czech Constitutional Court. It would really be helpful to have a look there over time and perhaps identify the spaces and the opportunities where the lawmakers could actually make some changes that would help. So algorithmic fairness tools could guide equitable resource allocation, promoting more inclusive and equitable democracy. So heading towards the end, so if we want to not have the bad stuff and have the good stuff, what do we need to do? I think the most important thing is the need for democratic oversight of artificial intelligence. For that, yesterday was too late. This cannot be just left to nation states. We no longer live. We are not like in the digital space does not have a nation state boundaries, and hence we need a global agreement. There are some tentative steps to it. There was more prior to January the 20th. We don't know where the current US administration will stand on that, but this will be really important because democracies and autocracies can utilize both artificial intelligence for their goals. So what would be the aim? To have a democratic legitimacy in artificial intelligence governance that requires transparency, accountability, and citizen participation. I think good starting point would be harm reduction, so kind of to focus on vulnerable groups that are most exposed. We know young people, especially very young people, can be victims of manipulation. International cooperation that I already said, and so what is needed is to balance innovation with regulation that ensures responsible and democratically aligned artificial intelligence deployment. So my fight with ChatGPT this week was about false equivalence and truth. And it gives you, it says on one hand and then on the other hand, but there are things like human rights that are no on one hand and on the other hand. We are not neutral in a liberal democracy. We cannot be neutral on human rights. We are not. That's not liberal democracy as it currently exists. So, 3 principles for democratic governance of artificial intelligence. It should have a human-centered design. So human beings should be at the center, as should human rights, freedoms, and dignity. These are values that we cannot make compromise. That on this is not on one hand and on other hand. Freedom, dignity, and human rights are just undeniable. Algorithmic transparency. So actually, if you are like in many of the discussions about TikTok, you could ask, what are you buying? What is valuable? It's not the infrastructure. The biggest value of TikTok lies in its algorithm. So the question is China going to sell also the algorithm? Is it going to be the real one, etc.? So we need algorithmic transparency, and finally accountability frameworks. So who is responsible? Who is overseeing? So who is watching the watchman? This is something we need to know. It has to happen in global coordination. I think this will be the hardest goal because, of course, democracies and autocracies have different aims. But I think at least on some of the issues I have mentioned, all can agree. Perhaps not on democratic accountability, but I think on the basic value of human rights and human dignity. I think that could be an agreement. Perhaps not by everybody, but by most. So, but even though we cannot agree and find consensus on everything, we will need to talk to each other and agree to disagree, but also not by reaching a compromise that we will only care about human rights of some and not human rights of others. Society is as free as its weakest members. So this is most important. We are not free if the top 1% is free. Top 1% is free in every autocracy around the world. It's about the bottom 99% and even more so the real bottom 10%. So democracy capacity building for artificial intelligence literacy. I think this is the most important. Thing. Again, yesterday was too late. We have to enhance public understanding of artificial intelligence. We need educational initiatives that would empower civic participation. We need to teach everybody and kind of can learn and build on activities that existed for bridging of the digital divide. So risk, I think that's quite clear. If we will ignore the risks of artificial intelligence, democracy will erode. And if we are going to stand here in 5 years, I don't know if I would be standing here in 5 years, but maybe some of the people in this room would be here, probably mostly the men. This is the risk. The democracy is not something you get and you have. It's something you need to keep. And we are, unfortunately, 35 years ago, history didn't finish. So kind of after the Cold War, there was this kind of kind of idea that democracy has won and history is over, and now it's only going to be free markets and liberal democracy. We couldn't be further away from the truth. As of today, according to VDEM, the level of democracy around the world is back to 1986. And I think it makes a lot of sense to some of us who remember the time before 1989. So these are the risks. And let me conclude. I think the artificial intelligence is a good servant and a bad master. It can be a good tool in the hands of people who are trying to do good. It can be also a bad tool in the hands of people trying to do good without oversight. It's both a threat and an opportunity for democracy, but it requires deliberate and informed governance choices. So democracies must actively shape artificial intelligence because they are already being shaped by artificial intelligence. And if they don't want to be ruled by artificial intelligence, they need to reflect and reinforce democratic values and practices. So robust frameworks, international cooperation, and proactive engagement is needed so that we can strengthen rather than erode democracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any question? I would have one. If I get you right, at the very beginning you said that there is something like 29 democratic
Liberties, and those are, so for example, Hungary is already ranked as a competitive autocracy. Israel, for example, is an electoral democracy, but not a liberal democracy.
India, because of population.
India is an electoral democracy, falling every year towards competitive authoritarianism, as the prime minister is strengthening his power and weakening checks and balances.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.